Hi, I'm Randy Robison. Welcome to this very special edition of Life Today. I have a couple guys here who are doing something extremely ambitious. They have a book on Pilgrim's Progress, but they also have done a full-length movie, animated film, on the classic John Bunyan tale. Steve Cleary and Robert Fernandez. Good to have you guys here.
Nice to be here.
Thanks, Randy.
Now, you know, Pilgrim's Progress is one of those classic masterpieces of Christian literature and really of all literature. That's a pretty big one to jump into. What made you guys say, let's tackle this well-known, established brand of Pilgrim's Progress?
It was really Robert's idea and something he felt he always wanted to do. But the Pilgrim's Progress has resonated in my life. I mean, John Bunyan was a persecuted Christian. He was in prison for his faith. And I've worked most of my life with persecuted Christians and Pastor Richard Wurmbrand and the Voice of the Martyrs. So it was very close to my heart understanding a martyr who was imprisoned. But while he was imprisoned, he writes this amazing book that for 340 years has just stood the test of time. It's considered the second best-selling book. To me, the second most important story or the best-selling work of fiction ever. So I think it was a natural, and people have asked me that, like, am I touching the holy grail of Christian media? But I guess I was too naive to think that way, because if you're gonna do a story, why not take the best story?
Yeah.
For me is that I've done a lot of animation, so I do a lot of animation directing. And it's a story that just really lends itself to an animation project because the characters that are in there, the locations, a lot of imagination is in these books. And I was surprised that something hadn't been done, or I think the last time was, as far as animation, was maybe like the 40s or something like that. No, I think before like 50s or something like that, animation. And there's been a couple of films that come out, but nothing really in the way that we're doing it. So it was a great opportunity. So I was surprised, but it was great. And then as far as the story itself, the thing that really resonated with me is that it's a story where it doesn't end when the person comes to Jesus. It doesn't end when he gets to the gate and it's like, oh, it's all over. And like, hey, great, you made it. Now from now on, your life is just going to be wonderful. No, in the film and in the book, it's like he gets there and it's like, hey, look, your journey is just beginning. And that's really what our life for the Lord is. It's God allows good things and bad things, and that's how we grow. We are Christian, all of us, in our own journey, in our own progress to the celestial city.
I know as a kid, I thought it was cool, right?
Yeah.
You know, you've got, and very visual, like you say, a lot of action, a lot of things going on, and you guys translate all that into the animation. But when you get older, you start to realize,
Yes,
this is what that meant.
right.
You know, and you start to relate, so it's hugely insightful. Give me a little bit of the sense of the production side of things. You know, you mentioned that you got studios outside the country.
Studios in San Jose, Costa Rica.
Okay.
And Robert is the managing partner and handles it and the director. And we wanted to hire our own people because we wanted to get the most out of the budget we had. And I really didn't trust, there's two things. I really didn't trust hiring a studio and not knowing where the money was going to go. Yeah. Not that there's not great studios out there. I just didn't have the relationships and the experience. And the other thing is we didn't want people being taken advantage of. So a lot of people go to countries and they'll go to a country that's a poorer country and they'll try to get labor dirt cheap. And we didn't feel good about that. We actually pay our workers about 10 or 15% higher than they would make at another studio that's based in the country. And so I think that was very important for us, and to maintain control and to know that every dollar we had was being spent the best way possible so we could make the best film but not take advantage of any of the workers.
Yeah. So that's where you're at most of the time down there?
Well, I'm originally from Costa Rica.
Okay, I was going to say, you're suffering for Jesus. I've been there a few times, and I love Costa Rica.
Yeah, no, it's a great place, but I was born there. I actually spent a lot of time traveling around. We're involved with a lot of different productions and everything, but being able to establish something in Costa Rica, which has a lot of talent, was just a great opportunity. It's been a great opportunity for us. We've been working on a lot of different projects there. And the interesting thing about it is that, you know, God is a great businessman. And he gets mileage out of everything that he calls people to do. So for us, it's not just working on the Pilgrim's Progress film, but it's everything that's happened throughout the entire time that we've been working on it, including the people that have been involved. So animators, people that have helped with, you know, designs and so on and so forth. Not all of them are Christian, not all of them are believers, but through this process, there's a lot that they get.
Yeah.
You know, and animation is like you're working on a scene sometimes just like for days and days and days and days, weeks and months. And so you can imagine listening to this soundtrack and listening to this message over and over. It, you know, it bears fruit.
Yeah, that's interesting. You've got some notable voices, some talent, some real talent. Talk about some of the people involved that we may recognize that voice.
We have John Rice Davies, who, of course, is known for Gimli in Lord of the Rings, and is it Saul in Raiders of the Lost Ark. He was great to work with. We flew to New Zealand. He was willing to work with our budget, and he loves the story, and he just did a great job. And you'll hear him as the voice of Evangelist. Kristen Getty, who's known, of course, for In Christ Alone. It's like one of the #1 worship songs of all time. So Keith and Kristen are friends of the project, and Kristen is the voice of the interpreter, and she's also going to introduce the film in the theaters. So we're a Fathom event, and we have like a little pre-show, and she did a presentation on stirring imagination and how it connects to God and creativity. She just did an amazing job. So we're real excited about that. And then Ben Price, who was on Australia's Got Talent, and he was a finalist, and he's a voice impersonator. So we had him do a couple different voices. But his main voice is Judge Haygood, and
he was fun to work with.
he was a lot of fun to work with.
He loves challenges, really. And there's a couple of scenes where usually, you know, we bring somebody in the studio, and they have certain characters to play. But there was a certain scene that he had where he was playing against himself, but he didn't want to do each character alone. So he actually portrayed each character as he was going.
Back and forth. The same guy with two different voices.
He just, you know, he just lets go and gets into it. That was great. And then everybody else on the cast, we recorded in England, and there are people that have been professional actors from television and also from the theater world as well. Really great guys to work with. We had one guy who is the voice of Russell Crowe for when they don't want to bring him back into the studio. He's like the voice double. So when Russell Crowe's having fights or whatever, and they didn't want to bring him in because he's so expensive, they bring this guy in. And he does all the all these different things.
I just think the story has resonated through generations and through. It was a favorite of Abraham Lincoln, and he said he identified with his own journey. And like Robert said, it's really all of our journey. Teddy Roosevelt, his favorite book. Ronald Reagan quoted it to another leader of another country, and quoted a Bunyan quote from the Pilgrim's Progress. And it just goes on, and that's what's great about working on it. We're not telling our story, we're telling the story of that God just inspired John Bunyan to write over, we don't know how many years. He was in prison 12 years. We don't know how long he worked on it. And it really is a privilege, and we were both shocked that how come somebody hasn't done this sooner? And when we started it, we had like 7 people say, we're working on one. There's always 7 being worked on, but none are ever released.
But it's a tough, they're just ideas. One. It's not an easy one to pull off. So the fact that you guys have done it is very cool. Now, one thing you mentioned before we sat down is that you're giving this for people that want to use this for evangelism.
For mission work, It is, we started a nonprofit, and we committed that this film would be free to the missionary. And what that meant is also that we could not take studio money or any money that would say, we have to tell any investor or any distributor that we have to save this for mission work. And we've actually had to walk away from offers where somebody said, look, if I'm gonna buy a license to this film, you can't be giving it away for free to mission work. So I'm saying, sorry, we're not able to do that deal. So we've left some unhappy people at the table, but my heart is to create a legacy and to be able to share this film. Robert and I put 5 years of our lives into this, and we put our life savings into it. I want it to be a legacy. I want people to use it. And we already have distribution set up in Iran, through the Middle East, in China. I want to take it into Cuba, and we have contacts there that are going to help us. Somebody in the Philippines wrote to me, they're going to take it through school systems in the Philippines. So it has a commercial application. We hope people go to the theater. They'll buy a theater ticket.
Is that the best way they can support you right now?
To go to our website and to either look at buying a group sales, you can get discounts, or buying tickets for your family. Yeah, absolutely.
So pack the theater on Easter weekend.
We're on Thursday and Saturday. So
Thursday.
Thursday evening before Easter and Saturday afternoon. Our website is pilgrims.movie, a simple website, and you can go, and you can also look at ways to volunteer. We'll send free resources to your church. But we really do, we believe this belongs to the mission world.
Yeah.
Jesus Film did a phenomenal release of their film, and billions of people have seen that film, and it was free in their teams, and they showed it.
Yeah.
And we don't think this really been a good second film for the mission film, so we feel to take Pilgrim's Progress, take animation, and package it and be able to give it to all those same people, give it to the churches, let them build curriculum around it, or let them build discussion around it. So really that's what's most exciting. We're doing a huge showing in Iran. I mean, how do you get into Iran? And we're going on the satellite system, and we project 6 million viewers over Easter weekend. So at the same time it's in the theater here in the U.S., we're going to be in the entire country in Iran at the same time.
That's great. Now, for people to catch this interview after Easter 2019, because this will be out there for a while, what can they do at that point?
We'll be doing church showings through the summer, and we're actually looking at a free license to churches. We invite contributions so we can put the film in other languages. We have a goal of 100 languages for the film, which will give us coverage of 90% of the world's population in first and second language. And then we're moving to curriculum. We want this to be taught in Sunday school, home devotions. Family devotions get really tough nowadays. Everybody gets so busy. And sometimes I think parents don't know what to share with their kids. So we want to give them, like, maybe episodically, they can sit down and watch it and talk about it.
Yeah.
My own son is 27 years old, right in the middle of a millennial. He's grown up in Sunday school, and he was watching the film with me, and he goes, Dad, he goes, am I Christian? Is this my journey? And this is what I go through in my life and what everybody goes through? And I'm like, yeah, you got it. You got it. I mean, it's exactly the message we want people to realize. This is all of our journey. And so I want to share that free. And if any of your listeners have a mission opportunity, call us, contact us.
I think too, it's important to highlight that the film, I mean, not because we worked on it, but the film itself is actually quite good.
Are you allowed to say that? It's our own film.
No, I know what they're doing. I worked on a lot of other projects and never said that, but this particular one, in other words, you don't want to give the impression that, it's like, we're giving it away, because it's not really. It's really a good movie.
Yeah.
I mean, in other words, it's as far as like the animation, the effects, the soundtrack, all that sort of stuff is really great. And then the other thing that we've experienced, the people that we've screened it with, and that we put in the script, is it's a movie that you can watch and enjoy. It's entertaining, but it's also got layers of depth. So you can watch, in fact, somebody told us this in one of the previous screenings that we had, that they were watching and that they wanted to kind of stop and think about it a little bit, what was going on.
It is. I mean, that's the way the book is. So I can see that. Now, let me ask you about the production side of it, because, I mean, when you're jumping in the world of Pixar, and you don't have the budget and the manpower of Pixar, it's a tough place to compete visually and all that. How do you overcome sort of some of the limitations of being a small budget,
Well, now that you mentioned about the thing with Pixar is, it's interestingly enough, I wrote the script, and when I started working on the actual production, some of the different characters, and I was helming the whole thing with character design through production. I was doing some research, and I came across somebody that was working on some designs of Pilgrim's Progress, and I got in touch with him, and it's one of the guys that works at Pixar.
Oh.
And so I asked him, hey, can you work with us? We actually hired him for about 6 months. He was the guy behind the designs of Toy Story and Cars and all that. And then in the middle of all that, at one point he goes, Robert, look, I've got to go because we're starting this new film, which was The Good Dinosaur, that he had to go back and work on. And so we had some great input along those lines. Now, obviously, when you're going into something like this, we were not by any means looking at it and saying, okay, we're going to compete with Pixar, because it's not that type of film. That's not our intention. You do what you can, the best that you can with what you've got. And a big part of that, a huge part of that, is you don't you really don't go by the budget. You go by the creativity. You go by the story itself and making the story very, very rich. And I think that's such a huge element, really, because you could take something that's very simple, design that's very simple, even a live action film that's very simple or filmed in a very simple way. But if the subject matter, if the way that you're telling the story, if the angles that you're using, if you're understanding the language, the visual language, and then you're understanding the dimensions of music and this other dimension that comes along with a soundtrack and without, all that stuff comes together to create an experience. Mm-hmm. And, we really were desperate praying all along the way, we still are. And I think that's where it's different. It's not a Pixar film, obviously, but it doesn't mean that it isn't good and it isn't going to grab you or grab your attention and force you to sit down and watch it till the end. It's very engaging, and then there's an added element, I think, because it's a Christian or faith-based movie, is you've got the element of storytelling, you've got the element of 3D animation, audio, music, all that sort of stuff. But then you got the element of the Spirit. Yeah. And the element of the Spirit just kind of supersedes all that because you're resonating with, I look at it two ways. For those that are believers, it's a bit of a kick to go, okay, come on. Hey, look, it's not like you arrived and no, that's not the way it is for most Christians around the world. That's not the way life is. Right. Number one. So it's give a little bit of conviction. And then for the people that don't know anything, that are not believers, that have not had a good experience in religion or don't know anything about Christianity, to be able to sit there and get that void filled through something in the movie that will resonate with them.
Yeah, I can see it. I've seen part of it, and I thought it looked great, especially like the Vanity Fair was one of my favorite scenes.
Yeah. This is a big production scene.
Yeah, a lot going on.
Because they have so many people, in literally a fair.
But you're also right, though, because as a Christian, I'm watching it, and it's striking chords that Hollywood's biggest production film will never, ever strike. So you've got a great
advantage. It is,
yeah.
And I think the story carries it. It's really a message film. It was a challenge to make it on the budget, but I think also that I wish people would do this. Because when we talk to some studio executives and even some faith-based studio distribution channels, they're like, how do you do a CGI animation on this budget? They said it's not possible. But we knew CGI is what people like to watch, and it's definitely, this story lends itself to 3D characters. But they said you're trying to do the impossible. So if you look at it, the average animated film is $80 million. And the average for Pixar or DreamWorks or something might be 120, and they go all the way up to $200 million. And obviously, we don't even have a budget that would equal their contingency fund.
Right.
But I think just pouring your heart into it and saying, let's do this. And so somebody who's used to animation, we had somebody who says, well, the animation, it lacks here or lacks there. But I'm like, we're going to give a story that is the holy grail of Christian media. And when we get to the mission field, they're not going to say, I wish it was higher quality. I wish you had spent $20 million instead of $2 million or whatever the numbers. They're going to say thank you. They're going to say thank you for bringing this to us and allowing us to our families to enjoy it.
No doubt. What's the website again for people that want to go check it out?
Pilgrims.movie. So some people think .com. We use .movie, not .com. And you'll find us if you go to Google and type Pilgrim's Progress Animation. You'll definitely find us out there.
Yep. We might find a couple others, so make sure they get the right one, get the good one.
Yeah.
Great. Do check it out. Check out the website. And if you're catching this before Easter 2019, please go to the website and help pack out the theaters, because I know that that's one of the ways that we sort of get the attention of the secular world with these types of productions, which helps for future projects. So check out the website, get in the theaters, and share the beautiful story of Pilgrim's Progress. Thank you for watching and sharing this interview. Be sure to check out the social media for Life Today Television, and you can connect with me on Facebook and Twitter. And if you haven't already subscribed or followed this channel, do it now so you can see more of our great guests.